Alright, today we're going to make a meat tenderizer. I'm already in inches and I've saved my file. Let's start with a sketch on the front face, and let's do a center point rectangle, and the sides of the rectangle need to be 1.875 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and just dimension one side and make them equal so that I have a square. I'll finish my sketch. I want to do a symmetric extrusion where the whole length will be a distance of 2.375 inches. Next, I'm going to do a sketch on the right side face. So I'm going to select that. Then let's find the 3-point arc tool. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball 2 points on the end, something like that. And let's dimension. From the end of the block to the end of the arcs is going to be 5/16 of an inch. So we'll put that on both of those. And then let's create a point, a midpoint on the arc. And the distance from the origin to the midpoint of the arc is 1/2 inch. Okay, that looks pretty good. Finish the sketch. Let's do a cut extrude, distance all. And the reason why I wanted that in the very origin is that will now allow me to pattern that cut with a circular pattern. So I will first select the face I want to pattern. And then the axis, I'll expand my origin and select the z-axis. And I want not 3, but 4 of them. There we go. So there's the start of our meat tenderizer. Next, let's start modeling the handle. So let's start with constructing an offset work plane, and let's come out a distance of 4 inches. Put a sketch on that plane. And then let's find the slotting tool. And let's see, I'm going to choose the center to center slot. You can actually choose whichever one you want to and still get there. And let's just kind of eyeball that. I put it off the origin on purpose for now. I'm going to create a point at the middle of there on that construction line and make that coincident and put it on the origin. Let's make that radius 0.15, and then let's make the distance between the two centers a distance of 0.375. Okay, that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and finish the sketch. And then let's do a extrude. And instead of telling it a distance, we'll go ahead and extrude to the object and pick the object we want to extrude to, and there's the start of the handle. Next, let's do an offset work plane off the end of that, 1/4 inch. Let's put a sketch on that surface. And then I want to use an ellipse tool here. If you don't have an ellipse tool, you can use a slot tool again. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball this because looking at it, that handle gets pretty big, but not that big. So I've just kind of eyeballed that, something like that, to where I guess I could put some dimensions on there if I put midpoints on there. How about 0.45 inches? And then the other distance here, about 0.75 inches. Okay, I'll finish my sketch. Again, if you don't have the elliptical tool, just use a center point slot again and try to do your best with that piece of this build. So then we want to loft between those two shapes. So let's first select the profile, click the plus sign to add an additional profile, and say OK. So that's getting the meat tenderizer where it flares out. And then we can just extrude that face an additional 4 inches. Make sure that's a join. So there's kind of your hammer handle for your meat tenderizer. And then let's add a fillet on the end of that. Because it does round it off quite a bit. Let's try 0.375 inches. And if that doesn't quite work based on the numbers you did, just use whatever size fillet you can. Okay, next let's put a sketch on the ground plane so that we're going to be able to extrude a circle through the handle. So I'm just going to draw a circle and let's dimension it at 0.375 inches. And let's dimension that distance back to the origin at, how about 7.5 inches? See how that looks. Okay. Let's also make sure that that's horizontal with the origin, so it's in the middle of the handle. Finish the sketch. And then we can do an extrude. It's going to need to be symmetrical and distance all. So it's going to cut all the way through the part. So then let's add a chamfer to that. So we'll go up to chamfer, pick that edge, and let's go, how about a 1/4 inch? That looks pretty good. Do the same thing on the other side. Now for the fun part, back to the business end of the meat tenderizer. Let's select one of those faces that's square and put a sketch on it. And let's get some good eyes and zoom in. And let's just put a rectangle on there. We're going to need to make it a square. And we want the dimensions to be 5/32 of an inch. And to make it simple, I'm going to go ahead and make those two equal to each other. The distance to the side of the meat tenderizer then is going to be 1/16 of an inch. And that'll be the distance from both the side and from the bottom edge. Okay, finish the sketch. So there's the first part. Okay, next we're going to do an offset plane from that face, and we're going to come out 1/8 of an inch. We'll put a sketch on that face, and I want to project 2 of those edges. I don't have to project them all, but let's project 2 of those edges from the previous square and add midpoints to those edges. And then we're going to go in and we're going to draw another square inside of the first one. Now I'm not going to dimension it at first. I want to get it centered and then dimension it because this other square is going to be pretty small. So then let's add some midpoints. And in order to center it, let's use horizontal and vertical constraints. So that'll jump into place and now it's centered. Let's make the sides of that square equal to each other so it's not just a rectangle, and then let's put one dimension on it that is a dimension of 1/64 of an inch. So you can see that's why I didn't want to put that dimension on right away, because it gets kind of small. So then we'll go ahead and finish the sketch. So what this is going to give us when we loft it is a truncated pyramid. So we'll go into Create, pick the Loft tool, pick a square, click the plus sign to zoom in and get that next square, and make sure that's a join. And then I have, at this point, 1 pyramid for my meat tenderizer. Next, we'll go ahead and pattern that. So let's look at this pyramid that's truncated head on, get some good eyes. Go to Create, select Rectangular Pattern. And we first are going to pick all 5 of those faces from the Truncated Pyramid. Next, you need to select the direction. So I'm going to just pick an edge with my selection arrow, select an edge, and that's going the wrong way. So I can just flip it. I want the distance to be 1.6 inches or negative 1.6 inches, whatever it needs to be for your particular part, and I want 8 of them. And then I need to do the same thing. I'll select a second direction. I need 8 in the other direction, and a distance of 1.6 or negative 1.6, depending upon how your origin was selected for your rectangular pattern. So as you can see, that totally covers up the business end of the meat tenderizer. And finally, let's clean this up with some fillets. So let's first add a fillet to the end part where the handle attaches to the hammer section. And let's make that 1/4 inch in size. Say OK. The 8 corners need to be 3/16 of an inch in size. So let's go ahead and select all of those. We might have to rotate this around to get the other corners. So 3/16 of an inch. And go ahead and apply that. And finally, we'll add some fillets to most of these inside edges here. And we'll size that fillet at 1/16 of an inch. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so there's our meat tenderizer.